Have you ever had this moment, the one where you look at your partner, the person you've decided to do life with, your ride or die, the one and only, and then you wonder to yourself, are we actually compatible? I mean, even asking the question is painful. We want to look away from it, but it sticks out like a sore thumb. We take inventory of what even makes a relationship work in the first place, but perhaps we've just got different personalities or different attachment styles. We don't communicate the same way. One of us has greater emotional needs and the other doesn't even seem to like to talk at all. Did I just choose the wrong person? I hope you're not shuddering too much right now. If you've stayed with us, you've probably got something that you want to uncover about what it means to be compatible with someone else. And what if we told you that compatibility is actually kind of a myth? I mean, we all know that the way social media and movies portray two soulmates finding each other is probably a fantasy, but there's still this part of us that holds on to the fact that something might be missing. And maybe that most recent Hallmark holiday movie you saw last Christmas was really onto something, and you just have to find your small town romance. But the movie is about a couple that work on understanding each other, negotiating needs, and putting actual effort into the relationship. They aren't getting greenlit by Netflix these days. They're not sexy. And this episode probably won't be either. But it will help you and your partner connect better.
Welcome to Relationship Advice. My name is Lauren. I am here with my friends and co-hosts Coulter and Kayla. We are 3 licensed professional counselors who run a therapy practice together in Phoenix, Arizona, and we bring all of our passion and knowledge to this podcast to help you learn how to better connect with yourself so that you can better connect with others. Something I want to just lead with before we dive into our conversation today is that because we focus on relationships on this podcast, I really just want to emphasize and remind everybody that information is incredible. All the information that we bring to this podcast, it's incredible that you're here, that you're taking it in, but it does not equate to transformation. The 3 of us know that you really have to be in the messiness of real relationship to actually start to experience change and repair and growth. And so there's a number of ways we want to invite you into this with us, especially if you've been listening for a while or if you're new and you want to come along this journey with us. We are now on YouTube, so you can actually tune in and see our faces, see our reactions, know which one of us is Lauren and which one of us is Kayla, or if you were having any
one is Coulter.
If you were having any trouble guessing who Coulter is. Yeah, so come and see us, join our reactions on YouTube. It's also really meaningful to us if you learn from this show, if you enjoy the show, if you could leave us a review, help other people who might be seeking quality information about relationships to know that this is a good place to come. And then we recently have created some really cool ways that you can come be in community with us and with others who are doing this work. So we have a platform called Relationship Academy where you can come and engage with weekly videos, discussions, polls, practices in community with Kayla, Coulter, and I. And we also have a 10-day couples challenge so that you can get into some real life practice with your own partner. So check out the link in the show notes to engage with us in some of these ways. And today we are jumping into the topic of compatibility, something that as couples therapists we hear come up all the time. Or am I just not compatible with my partner?
Yes. All the time.
All the time.
It's in couples work and also individual work. It's a scary thing to fear that there might be this big thing that I'm missing, compatibility with my partner. And, what is the risk? If I got that wrong and I'm not actually compatible with them, then what?
Yeah, that's such a scary thought that it feels just like it's over. I'm not compatible with this person.
Yes.
I chose the wrong person.
Yes. It completely deletes hope. And I think that's the thing. Like, we hope that there could be some change, and then it moves us into this place of like, oh, now we can't fix this. It's not changeable. This is just going to be what it is.
I was even thinking on the other side, like the risk that can come up of like, I've only got one life to live. Like, what if I'm living it with a partner that I'm not truly compatible with? And while it can be so scary to think about leaving and going into the unknown, could I find somebody else? It can also be really scary to be like, am I settling? And am I going to spend my whole life in a relationship where I could actually be more fulfilled with someone else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially when it's coupled up against what Coulter had mentioned in the vignette, and that is all the Hallmark movies, Disney movies, ways that where relationships are portrayed that make it seem like it's always rainbows, butterflies, and connection. And if it's not, then that must mean something about us.
Mm-hmm. I even think about like the highlight reels that we see on social media, whether it's like a couple that has a platform together or just friends that you follow, influencers, where it's like we only get the highlights. People aren't posting, I think even for appropriate boundaries, like people aren't posting the intimate details of their nastiest fights and the times that they're crying and disconnected and screaming at each other. And so it's really easy from an observer lens to think like, oh man, all of these other people have such a beautiful life and partnership, and what's going on with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not sexy, like Coulter said. I loved that. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It's not. It's not sexy.
Well, let's get some unsexy takes from some of our heroes in the relationship space.
Yeah. When it comes to the topic of compatibility, because this is something like Kayla said that we see come up so much, we did want to just reference some of the leading experts and voices in the field of couples therapy and relational work. I've got 4 for us, and we can rotate through these because I've shared them with Coulter and Kayla. So my leading hero, Esther Perel, says perfect compatibility is a modern fairy tale. Healthy relationships are built by learning how to navigate friction, not avoid it.
Mm, that's good.
Mhm.
Modern fairy tale.
Mhm.
All right, Kayla, who's your hero?
Oh, come on. Sue Johnson is the founder of EFT, and she says what many couples call incompatibility is often a cry for emotional connection.
I'm excited to get into some of that conversation today too. Like, what's the difference between compatibility versus emotional connection?
I don't really have a hero on this list. All my heroes are basketball players from the 90s.
Oh. All right. Well, I hope none of these people are listening.
I do like Gaber Mate, though. He
Mhm.
is pretty cool, and his accent
very
is
cool.
so awesome. I could listen. I could listen to him all day. He says, before asking, "Are we incompatible?" it may be helpful to ask, "What old pain does this relationship keep awakening in me?"
Yeah, that's one we do a lot of excavation work in couples therapy sessions. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap us up with a quote from the famous John Gottman, one of the leading researchers in exploring what makes couples click, what makes couples stay together. And he says the strongest couples are not the ones who agree on everything, they're the ones who know how to stay connected even when they don't. I noticed through reading all of these this theme of connection versus compatibility.
Yeah, and even when we started this conversation today, I thought about, the idea of, is it a full myth? Is compatibility a full myth? Is it a part myth? Is it actually true? I mean, it is something to really think about, because I think there are parts of our relationship and the traits that we attract in a partner that we do need to look at as maybe elements of compatibility. But there are so many pieces of this that we will move very quickly into questioning compatibility that are actually something else.
Yeah, I like that idea because I don't think it's fully a myth. I don't think that there are people that we just like don't work well with. But how do you even start to tease that out?
I mean, I think about how often we want things to be a binary, and I think that's one of the things that happens when people look at like, well, are we compatible? It's like this binary, like we are or we're not, versus looking at it as more of a continuum. As you know, I love to see everything in a continuum. So I think this is true in friendships too. It's like there's so many people where it's like, yeah, like I just wouldn't enjoy hanging out with this person because we have such different interests, or we have such different humor, or we don't have any of the same things to talk about. Like it's harder for me to track how somebody else is like communicating. And so I definitely think compatibility is a real thing. I think that it's just when it becomes this binary where we're like, well, which side do we fall on to know whether or not I should stay in a relationship is where it gets really tricky.
Wow, Lauren, you just named quite a few things that stand out as far as compatibility, even in friendship. And I wonder if we could slow those down a little bit and name a few of those pretty explicitly, because I think that is pretty common that people are looking for these traits or qualities that would indicate some incompatibility in a relationship. And I don't want people to miss what you just said.
So if we're going to define this, relationship compatibility is the degree to which two people can successfully navigate their differences while building a relationship that supports both partners' needs, values, and long-term goals.
So then I think, Kayla, in answer to your question, we're looking at like what are some of the values, needs, long-term goals that come up for people when we're looking at compatibility and alignment.
I just want to say
Yeah.
I like this definition on how it has the degree to which two people can successfully navigate their differences. That it doesn't say relationship compatibility is how similar two people are.
Yes.
It's like how they're able to navigate the fact that they are different.
Well, I think about going back to like people that I maybe wouldn't click with as a friend, it's like I could still get through a conversation. I could still be at a party and socialize, but it's like it feels like it takes so much effort to have to like filter or adjust like the way that I'm talking, or to sense like I don't know if you're going to think that's funny, or like you said something that I'm supposed to think is funny but I don't think it's funny, so how do I like react? Like it just feels like so much more effortful. Like I can navigate it, but like ooh, it's hard.
And do I want to? I mean,
Do I want to?
yeah. That feels like it's like that just feels like a miss. We just keep missing each other, and that we don't have this like sense of shared humor.
Yeah. Well, and I guess on that note, I think humor is a really big one when it comes to like what makes connection enjoyable for people, even in spite of differences. And I think almost every time that I've asked clients, like, what's one of your non-negotiables? Like, what's something that attracts you to your partner? Like, that is one of the very top of the list, like that we can have shared humor.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I mean, some other things that come up when we think about romantic partners that's often on the list is attraction and sexual connection. Like I think there are definitely ways to work on sexual compatibility. I don't want that to be misunderstood. I think that that is something that we can teach and learn, and we can communicate about. There's a lot of evidence that shows that. And there's also this experience where we might just have this difference in drive and preferences that may not be something to overcome. Now, whether or not that makes somebody compatible or not is something you have to decide. Some people may not deem that as the non-negotiable need for compatibility, but it is one that comes up often enough in my office that I feel like it's worth mentioning.
That's also one I know that ebbs and flows so much throughout the course of a relationship. So I think that can be a really tough one. Like, I think it's easier to gauge at the start of a relationship. Like, do we have this kind of connection? How important is this kind of connection to each of us? But it is another myth that I see us having to constantly bust, that like that's going to stay the same throughout your whole relationship.
I know. So it's like a asterisk here. It's like, yes, and there's a lot of other things you might need to be talking about first.
Well, I don't even know if this like fits specifically into this list, but I was talking with my husband about this topic last night, because a lot of times when we're prepping for podcast content, I'm like, what do you think about this? And how does our relationship fit into this? And we were kind of laughing because we're like, we both feel highly compatible with each other. Like we love our connection and feel really secure in it. But we were laughing because we were like, if we had met at any point previous to when we did, I don't think we would have found each other compatible then, like just depending on like the developmental stages that you're going through, and when you're in school, and what your career life is like, and your financial stability. Like there's so many things that would have made that difference.
There's a timing piece there for sure. My wife and I started dating when I was 29 and she was 25. And I always say, if we had both been 25, there's no way this would have worked. I mean, really, just like she wouldn't have gone for me.
She wouldn't have gone for 25-year-old Coulter.
No, not at all. 29-year-old Coulter, though, had a lot more going for him and was a lot more secure in himself. She had kind of already gotten to that point at 25. I think that can, tracks for a lot of men and women.
Well, and I think what you're both describing here is our own like growth path in life as we mature, as we
Mhm.
maybe emotionally mature as well, then a
Mhm.
different version of us can surface. And I also then started to think when you were saying that, like, that also could happen through the course of a relationship then.
It
One of us
can.
could grow into this different,
Yeah.
evolved version of ourselves, and that may impact compatibility.
What do y'all think of the idea? I've heard someone say before that when you marry someone, you are saying yes to every version that that person is going to be.
What do we think about it?
Yeah.
I think it's really romantic in theory. I think a lot of times it's easy to say yes to something that we have not experienced. It's easy to I mean, it's in all wedding vows, right? Like in sickness and in
Mhm.
health, right? Like till death
Mhm.
do us part. We all think we're agreeing to say yes to that, but the divorce rate is over 50%. So obviously it's like when we get into the places that feel really hard and uncomfortable and distressing, the fact that it's like, well, hey, you agreed that you were going to deal with every version. It's like, well, I didn't know that it was going to be an addict version or a version that hurt
Mm.
me or betrayed me or didn't take care of me like I thought they were going to.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's very accepting and compassionate, but I also think putting it into practice
Yeah.
can bring up a lot of like, "Oh, you know what? No."
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one that needs some expounding on. I do think it is kind of a good idea though to begin with at least because I think it kind of highlights what we're talking about with compatibility, which is like this is going to take work and 10 years later the other person may be like, I don't like going out to sushi anymore. It's like, well,
Mhm.
that was like the core of our relationships.
That's the deal breaker.
Mhm,
I freaking love sushi. So
mhm.
I know. I did become a vegetarian at one point. That was a
date
big
out or
shift.
divorced you at that
Yeah.
point.
It's a good thing we
Mhm.
No,
never got
not
married.
saying yes to that version. That wasn't in the vows. It
But
wasn't
that
carnivorous and vegetarian. It was sickness
yeah,
and health. So if you're sick,
yes,
it's fine. But
yes. And that is actually one of the things that we look for as far as compatibility, lifestyle, right?
mhm,
There could
Mhm.
be just completely different lifestyle and views of how we navigate through the world that just are not aligned, whether
Mhm.
that's our food choices or our music choices. Just kidding. But, like,
Yeah.
I think about a couple that one partner really wants to socialize and be, out in parties and go see the newest bar when it opens up and, like, maybe wants to stay out late, and the other is more of a homebody, and sometimes we can overcome that, and other times it starts to feel non-negotiable.
mhm.
Mhm.
And so lifestyle is one of those areas that we do wanna look at for compatibility.
I think a really obvious one too. I mean, this fits into lifestyle, but it's like family. Do we want to have kids? Do we want to raise kids together? Do we, how do we navigate if we want that, but we're struggling with infertility? I just think of so many versions of this when it comes to family planning that definitely make couples look at compatibility and connection and like how they're navigating if they're not wholly on the same page there.
One of the things I was thinking about in preparation for this episode is maybe like our philosophies about our mental health. You mentioned, Lauren, substance abuse earlier, but
Mhm.
there through conversations, we may then get to this place where we recognize that there's a very big difference in the ways that we see mental health, and perhaps that becomes a place where one person is okay with where things are and the other person is not. And that's really what we're looking for in a lot of these conversations, not to jump too far ahead, but it's like when we start to have that and then we recognize that we're just in this very big different place, then that's what marks whether or not there's compatibility. I think a lot of people skip that conversation and move right to that decision, but that's
Mhm.
really what we're trying to discern. It's not that we have these mental health differences, it's that we've talked about it and then we're sort of like camped in these very different areas.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where so much of this conversation comes back to is it's not like, oh, again, there's a difference. I want kids and you don't want kids. I want to pursue another degree and you don't want us to spend money that way. I want to move out of state and you don't like it again comes back to those quotes we shared in the beginning. How are we talking about it? How are we navigating it? How are we slowing down those conversations and not just getting immediately sucked into the gridlock of like, well, one of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose. And so if there's a loss, this must be it.
Mm-hmm. Or just this deciding that we're just too different. We're just too different without having the conversation. That is,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, that is constantly the thing that I notice is that there is the skipping of the conversation and moving really quickly into making a decision about that person.
Well, I think people
Uh-huh.
are afraid that if they even approach the conversation with curiosity or openness, they're going to be betraying themselves or something that they want. That it's like, I really want this thing. And if I start the conversation with, like, tell me why you're not wanting this, tell me what this experience is like for you, like, I'm already starting to waffle a little bit. Like, I'm already showing them that there's some wiggle room here. They can talk me out of it. And so I've got to stay strong. I've got to stand firm. Recipe
Mm-hmm.
for disaster, my friends.
I think that's exactly right, Coulter. I see that come up time and time again, especially in the therapy office when we're like, let's slow this down. Like, can you share this with your partner? And, even times that people are like, I can't share it with them because they won't care. And the other partner sometimes is like, yeah, I won't. They're right. Like, I don't want to hear it. I have no flexibility in this.
Mm-hmm. And even there, I can think of previous couples intensives, Lauren, where
Mm-hmm.
we're able to then highlight that's a choice. And if you
Mm-hmm.
make that choice, it will impact your relationship.
Yeah.
So if you stay really rigid there, you have to know that that is going to have an impact. And sometimes that direct conversation can open up some flexibility. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that direct conversation confirms the rigidity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we need to know. If we're avoiding that conversation altogether, though, we're not actually ever discerning whether it's true incompatibility or negative cycles that are, impacting our beliefs about compatibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Kayla, I'm really excited to hear you kind of break this down because I think what you just said, it's like that is the thing couples are really, I think, trying to navigate, especially when they come into couples therapy work, is like, is this just an incompatibility or is this an emotional, disruption? Is this a cycle? Is this, you know, an inability to communicate because we have such different emotional ranges or expression? And is one of those right? Or are we just not able to show up in a safe way? Like, what's happening there?
Mm-hmm. And I think I've said this before. I'm trying to think of which episode it was, but I know we've talked about like how to have these hard conversations. So like, do we want to have kids or not? We have major political or worldview differences in our relationship, and then they'll come to me and they'll say, "Kayla, can we even be in a relationship with this difference?" And my true answer is maybe. Maybe.
Mhm.
Because the reality is it's about how we talk about it and can we tolerate experiencing this difference with one another, or is it too distressing to have this difference between us? And that's when we're going to settle in this more incompatibility area. It's like I cannot tolerate it or I won't tolerate it. That's a whole different conversation. Is like I am unwilling to negotiate here. I am unwilling to even hear what it's like to be you, then that's
Mhm.
something I'm going to look at as like this may be beyond cycle work. This may be beyond us having these conversations. But I guess, like, even in saying that, there's another question that I'm asking, and that is why? What
Mhm.
would happen if you did?
Yeah.
If you did hear what it was like to be the other person, and that was what was going through my mind
Uh
is
huh.
that, even if it is such a non-negotiable, the one that keeps coming up for me is like, I want kids or I don't want kids. Maybe we both wanted kids and then the other person says they don't want kids. I don't really understand why we wouldn't at least want to understand what is going on for the other person, be willing to hear, even if we're like, I really cannot see any world in which this changes for me.
Mhm.
Why would we not want to hear and understand the other person? It seems like that's necessary.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it seems like it is. And I think there can be various reasons why people get really stuck there of like, it doesn't matter. If your answer is no, then that's all I need to know. Then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And it can go so fast.
Mhm.
That's where there is a cycle component here is when you're right, Coulter, when it's going too fast and we don't even have the willingness or curiosity to hear from each other, we can use EFT interventions there, but sometimes I get shut out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I understand that you're describing an issue that happens for people. I think if we're giving relationship advice, then I would encourage people to always take that step of curiosity because you might say that is all the information I need, but maybe some understanding, helps that person have some wiggle room.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
really take some time to validate and understand
1000%.
what is going on for them, maybe you actually can get what you want.
Yes. And I have seen that time and time again. But there
Mhm.
has to be willingness there. There has to be willingness.
I'm just thinking about how often, like when I've had clients that I've worked with for years, let's say 2 to 3 years or beyond, and they'll get to this place where they're like actually communicating differently and they're actually staying out of their own protective moves and using more vulnerability. And they'll come in and have a session or they'll come into a group session and be like, it's actually working. This feels so much better. And every time I'm like, it's so hard to explain to people, like, it's so hard to get people to believe that it
Mhm,
actually does feel so much better on the other side,
Mhm.
mhm,
and it's something as a therapist that I have to, like, temper so much in the beginning stages of working with people because our protection is so heightened. It's like our nervous system is on such high alert and threat that it feels really scary or overwhelming emotionally to, like, soften and get curious and get vulnerable. We'd rather just not do that and get our way.
mhm. But I think, Lauren, you had said how do we discern then if it's cycles or attachment versus compatibility? And that is the answer. So for couples or partners that are listening to this and they're trying to discern, is this compatibility or is this an attachment issue? That is the answer. It's that we need to slow it down, get more
Mhm,
curious, be more vulnerable, not
mhm,
only about what the content is, but on the emotional impact. What am I feeling? Where did this
mhm,
first start for me? When I hear that you want to parent our child differently, here's what my mind is telling me. Here's what I'm most afraid of. If we start to have that sort of conversation, can we get more flexibility with one another and negotiate or compromise? Or is this I will not change this despite what I'm hearing from you.
mhm.
That's the line in my mind.
Yeah, it's bringing up in my mind, like, again, whether it's couples or individuals coming in this discernment place, the thing I'm always trying to help couples or individuals see is my goal is for you to get more clarity, and we're not gonna get clarity as long as you are so dysregulated and in protection, right?
Mhm.
So it's like when we can get clear for ourselves, what is my mind doing with this? What old pain is this
Yes.
awakening in me?
Uh-huh.
What is the emotion coming up? What am I afraid of? What would it be if we can get that organization for ourselves so that we can stay curious, so that we can stay connected, and then we can start consistently showing up in a softer way?
Mhm.
Then, if our partner keeps responding to softness and protection, if they keep responding to curiosity and protection, if they keep responding to vulnerability and protection, that's going to give us way more clarity to be able to be like, oh, I can't change other people. But I have way better shot at changing the relationship if I can like make sure I'm showing up in a safe, individuated way.
Yeah, and there's another area here when I think about is it attachment or is it compatibility that's worth mentioning, and that's when we have a relationship injury, which
Mm.
is like a really big hurt, abandonment when my attachment needs were especially high. So you're thinking like during a time of like birth, death, like a big move or something like that,
Surgery.
where I was really
Mhm,
needing you and you weren't there for me,
mhm,
or a betrayal. So not only infidelity, there's a lot of different types of betrayals. Again, if you haven't listened to some of those episodes on injuries, go back and listen to them. But there, when we have this injury in the relationship, this big hurt, then it's natural that we start to question our compatibility and if we can
mhm,
stay. That's a really common experience after something like that. And so, there is a really specific way to heal injuries, and I won't go into too much of that today because like I said there's another episode on this that you can search for, but I want us to also be able to discern that when that's happening, that's a natural part of that process. And so we don't want to confuse compatibility with the pain after an injury.
mm. I love that you're highlighting that because you're right. It's like that's a different emotional thing that has happened, and again, it's how are we navigating that? can we reinstate some emotional safety? It's like I like this question. I feel like, Kayla, you and I were talking about this earlier and you worded it well, so you might have to like restate this for me, but it's
Oh
like
boy. Therapist's worst nightmare. Say
Yeah.
that again.
Say that again. Truly.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm like, what did I say? I don't know.
Oh my
I was in a
gosh.
flow state. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It is. It's constantly that. But it's something like, is it really just like a difference that we're having a hard time navigating? Or like, am I not emotionally safe here? Like, can I not feel emotionally safe? Because not feeling emotionally safe is really different than like we just want two different things.
Yes. Well, and I love that you're naming that because injury aside, a lack of emotional safety is really common when we're having negative cycles. But emotional safety in and of itself isn't a compatibility issue. Sometimes that is that we need to be able to work through how to create safety and what it feels like to be me and see if there can be a difference here. And I think one of the biggest things that I have started helping couples to notice is it an issue of care? Or is it an issue of follow through? Or I don't have the tools for this, or my tolerance is different than yours. If care is online, then we can work with that. It's a matter
What
of
do you
like
mean by care, Kayla?
like, do I care what's happening for you? Do I want to be different? Do I want things to feel safer when you describe what it's like for you to feel unsafe? If there's care there, let's work with it. But that's, I think, one of the things that we can get caught up into is like our brains move really quickly, especially for our pursuers, into they don't care, I'm not important to them. But that's not, oftentimes, that's, I want to say like never, but I can't say never. But it's most often not the experience of the withdrawer. Something else is happening for them.
Yeah. So you're saying, like, if there is care, like, I see that there's disconnect between us. I see that this person is always dissatisfied or wanting something different from me. And I do want to be able to address that. I
Yes.
just don't know how, or I get overwhelmed or I
Yes.
get stuck and go into this
Yes.
withdraw. That's like
Yes.
attachment stuff we can work with.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Versus compatibility. Now, if there's like, I don't want to do anything different, I won't do anything different, or I don't care about what's happening for you, then that's something we do need to double click on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. So, how do I know if I'm compatible with my partner?
That's the $1 million question.
How do I know? One sentence. Go, Lauren.
I'm actually thinking of some of the questions that I might ask to differentiate. Like, if I'm really looking at compatibility, I might ask, can we build a life together? Are our values aligned? Do we see that our long-term goals fit together? Can we honor each other's differences? If I can answer all of those questions with a yes, then there probably is decent compatibility there. If there's a no coming up for some of those questions, even if we have a lot of emotional safety, it still might be, I don't know if our long-term goals fit. One of us might want to be really like career driven and pursue a certain, financial goal or status. And the other one might be like, I actually would love to just like live in a trailer by the river in the middle of nowhere. Okay. Sounds a dig at
I'm like,
Kayla.
Kayla's both of those, career driven and wants to live in a trailer.
Look at me.
You can have both.
You can have both.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, truly, it's like sometimes we could love each other so much and feel like there is emotional safety. We can talk about these things. But the reality is, like, one of us wants to travel the world and the other one wants to stay still. One of us wants to have kids and do the family thing and the other one doesn't. One of us, like, needs a different kind of, not emotional support, but maybe like financial support or motivation, something where we might get to this place of like, oh my gosh, we love each other and we're just going to grieve that this isn't compatible. Versus, I think, if we're looking at more attachment, we might be asking, are you there for me? Do I matter to you? Am I emotionally safe with you?
Yes.
Will you respond when I reach for you?
Yes.
Those aren't compatibility issues. Those are attachment issues.
No doubt. And I think I even have one more I want to add to that list. I've been thinking about it since we started talking. And that is, have I felt this way before in relationships? If I look back to whatever it is that I'm experiencing right now, is this a pattern? Is this a theme for me? Because that's also something I'm looking for attachment, is that there might be some repetition of like, I keep choosing partners who I deem as incompatible, but
Mhm.
perhaps it's actually an attachment issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing that comes to mind, and I find myself saying this to friends, to family, like not only to clients, but really posing this question like, are you always trying to change your partner? Or do you find
Yes.
Mhm.
yourself always wishing that they were different?
Yeah.
Because I have heard so many people say, like, they're going to do therapy and they're going to work on these things. And like when they are just a little bit more emotionally mature, when they're just a little bit more motivated, when they're just able to do XYZ. And it's like, okay, but
Mhm.
if none of those things ever changed, and that's a really scary place to be sometimes because there could be so much else that we love, but it's like, oof, like if they never changed, what would that be
Yeah.
like for me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's that place where then we start to lose hope that we don't want to lose. So then there's this fixer that wants to just keep holding on to hope that
Yeah.
something might be different. And the truth is, we don't know.
Mhm.
So that is what's hard
Yeah.
about that question.
I think always trying to change them begs another question as well, which is how many things are we needing to change about this person? And
Mhm.
Hmm.
we always talk about getting our top 10 non-negotiables. And if you've got 50 different things that you want for this person to be, it might also be an attachment issue, something that you need to look at for yourself that I need this person to be kind of this perfect archetype of what I think a partner should be.
Yes. Or all of the things for me. Right. I saw some sort of reel recently and I wish I had saved it, but it was like, if you need your partner to be your best friend, your intimate partner, your advice giver, your blah, blah, like fill in
Mhm.
the blanks,
Your
right? Then,
spiritual leader. Yeah.
yes, then you may be experiencing an attachment issue. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Mhm.
yeah, that could be something to look at.
Well, we will, one of the things I think we'll do is we'll think about all the people in our lives. Who's the person I go to for advice? Who's the person who's most emotionally intelligent? Who's the person who's most adventurous? Who's the person who is safest? And then we want a
Mhm.
partner who
Who's
matches
all of
every
that?
single one of
Yeah.
those people in all of those categories.
Yeah. Yeah. That is something to look at.
Yeah, this is something I've heard Esther Perel talk about so much, like, that is I mean, she calls it the modern fairy tale, like, that's a newer development, I think, in the last 100 years or so, that we have all of these expectations that we put on one person. That did not used to be the case. It was like people had more of a village, they had more defined roles and expectations in their romantic relationships, and now while there's this you know, beauty and freedom to being able to choose who you love and how you want to spend your life. And, especially like women have a lot more freedom and agency than they ever did in the past. But with that, then also comes all of these expectations that, like, because I can choose it, you need to be all of these things. And if you're not, this is my one life. And am I choosing wrong?
So let's move into what to do if I'm listening to this episode and I really do believe that there could be a compatibility issue in my relationship. Now what?
You
You've s-
send this episode to your partner, and then they listen, they change, they're better. No, you
Leave
do
us
need
5-star review.
Done.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
5-star review, join Relationship Academy. Uh, you've got to bring this experience to your partner. You have to be willing to start this discussion. I mean, let's go back to the question of compatibility. It's how do we navigate our differences, not
Mhm.
how do I take assessment of if we're different or not.
Yeah, and this there's a couple things to camp out on this point, and I think one of them is bring this to your partner, but you may get confirmation that there is
Mm,
an incompatibility issue through that discussion. It's clarity that you're getting. You may also then recognize this isn't compatibility at all. This is me avoiding, hard conversations in
yeah.
relationships, and I need to work on that. But there is
Mhm.
a risk that we have to acknowledge that through a hard conversation, one of those outcomes could be confirmation. And my belief is always that we need that confirmation.
There's another question that comes to mind. I think, again, this is a little bit of like differentiating, okay, is this a compatibility issue? But when you're talking about bringing this to your partner, even just asking the question, like, if I felt completely emotionally safe with this person, would that change how I feel about this? Like, would it change how much I'm considering if this is a compatibility issue? Because oftentimes, if I don't feel emotionally safe with this person, that is part of what's holding me back from wanting to bring the thing to them. Because it's like, I'm going to bring the thing to them and we're just going to get into a cycle, like
Mhm.
it's not going to get us anywhere. And so that also can be an issue of emotional attachment connection versus incompatibility.
Yes. And to that, I would say there's still another option, and that is we suggest couples therapy with an EFT therapist, and we see if that person has any willingness to work on this. And if you get another stop there, then that's information you need to have.
I think too, like I know we've said this on previous episodes, but if you are in this place of really questioning this, like get some feedback from trusted people in your lives, you know. Sometimes we keep our relationships really, really insulated from our friends and family where it's like, I'm not sharing any of the details about our relationship because I want to
Mhm.
protect this person or I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to judge or think bad of. But the reality is, again, if there's emotional safety there, like we do need to have other eyes on our
Yeah.
relationship and being able to give us feedback of like when I see my friend in relationship, do I see my friend getting to be their best self? Do I see them receiving support? Do I see them showing up, you know, feeling safe enough to take risks
Mhm.
and be playful and be vulnerable?
I want that perspective from my friends as well. Here's what I'm seeing about my partner. Do you see this also? Is this a me thing, or is this something that's showing up for other people?
Yeah, that'll be another way to discern if maybe it's more attachment or compatibility.
Mhm.
Like if I'm
Mhm.
the only one seeing it and everybody else is seeing something else, then that might be something I need to look at.
Mhm.
Or is this person presenting themselves drastically different in front of people than they are at home? That's also something that we want to look at. But that, again, that doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. It also might mean that that's an attachment issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
We also talk about tracking on this show, not for scorekeeping per se, to see how the other person is doing, more to judge your own assessment of how things are going. That's like, well, we never have sex. We always get into these arguments. They never want to go out. Like, track some of these things and then appraise it in 30, 60, 90 days so you can see not if they are doing what you want them to do, but how well you are doing at judging said thing that you are worried about.
I even think this is maybe like a slight tangent from tracking, but in a different way, like looking at some of the pros and cons of the relationship where like I remember being in a relationship that, you know, looking back, it's like it was a emotional unsafe issue. It's like it just didn't I could not feel safe in that relationship. But there were a lot of other things that did feel really compatible. And I remember when I was in a lot of distress in the discernment of this, having a friend who asked me, like, Lauren, you are always in distress about this. Like, there's so many things that feel bad about this. Like, what is it that's good about it? Like, what is it that you're
Mm,
holding on to? And transparently, like, it was hard to even answer the question. It was almost more of like a feeling of like, there just are some things that I don't want to let go of. And there's like some past experiences that were really good and future dreams that it could be better. And, but even just confronting ourselves with like, how much does the bad outweigh the good? Or sometimes being able to see like, oh, I get really hyper fixated on these couple things that are hard, but there's also so much that's good that I really do feel grateful for that I don't want to lose sight of. Like
Yeah.
really looking at those side by side can be
Yeah. And
clarifying.
I love that you said that last part of it too, because sometimes the outcome of that is that you check yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, I just keep focusing on this one thing, but there's 9 things that I love. And so I need to build some tolerance for the one thing, or I'm going to choose to build tolerance for that thing.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. So I think it can go either way.
Yeah. I know we did an episode a while back too. I think it was titled How to Know When to Call It Quits. And so, if you're listening and you are in a place of like, I really am in that place of discernment. I don't know if I can stay in this. That's another episode that might give you some additional points to think about and check in with yourself about whether there's some additional work there or at what point you would have the clarity to know if you need to make that decision.
Well, and in that episode too, we just talk about that process because sometimes even when you have the clarity, maybe you listen to this episode and you got some confirmation today that like there is a compatibility issue in this relationship. It doesn't mean that we have to move out of the relationship tomorrow. There can be some things that we do in the meantime to cope with the fact that it's hard to, upheave our entire life. So I do love that episode.
All right. Well, I think this is a good place to land the plane for today and hopefully gave everyone some food for thought. I know I can even get lost in the semantics of this, like, well, is it still incompatibility if your attachment styles aren't the same, and so I just want to encourage people, don't get lost in it, just be able to check out, like, is it really that we can't build a life together, we don't have shared values, we don't have shared goals, and that's sad for us, or are there some emotional safety, connection, attunement things that probably each of us and us together could look at to get more clarity here?
And if you're listening to this episode and you're realizing this is not a compatibility issue, it's more of an attachment issue, then join us on Relationship Academy, where you can learn more about how to manage the differences in attachment in your relationship.
That's also a great place if you have questions that you wanna kinda take a poll on and hear from other people, like, do other people experience this? Who else struggles with this? That there's some of the community where we can get that data so you don't have to feel in such a vacuum with some of this stuff.
All right. Thanks for stopping by with us today. Like Kayla and Lauren mentioned, come hang out with us in Relationship Academy. We love answering questions. That's the place to get your questions answered. So we will see you all next week.